there are Black Jews and Hispanic Jews. I'm not debating that at all. I am saying that the 12 tribe chart itself is completely bogus, and that, yes, Ashkenazi Jews are among other Jews. Yes, they are legitimate Israelites. All right, so let's put the PowerPoint up, and I'll begin my presentation. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is first debunk a sample of the worst errors on the chart, and then we'll demonstrate that Ashkenazi Jews are authentic descendants of Israel. I'm fine with basing our debate on patrilineal descent, meaning we trace Israelite heritage through the father. I'm fine with that. I may have some related questions later on, but we'll proceed with the patrilineal argument. Now, as for the chart, it's flawed in many obvious ways, including sweeping generalizations, glaring omissions, including the omission of Mizrahi Jews, some of whom had a continuous documented presence in the Middle East for over 2,500 years, among others, and insupportable claims. Of course, the chart you're familiar with, I'm sure Al-Azhar will be getting into it more as we go on. Now, if any part of the chart is false, then the chart cannot be trusted. Keep this in mind throughout the debate. And over the course of Al-Azhar's presentation, listen carefully for factual, historically verifiable, conclusive evidence that connects the different groups of this chart to the specific tribes of Israel listed, not general alleged connections or highly suspect historical anecdotes or convoluted biblical interpretations, but clear, indisputable, historical, scriptural, and genetic connections to each specific tribe. Hang on, there we go. That evidence doesn't exist. And if any point he raises seems to have substance, I'll address it during the times of rebuttal. The Alliance for Black Jews, by the way, claims that there are roughly 200,000 Black American Jews, meaning roughly 0.5% of African Americans. And yes, of course, there are Hispanic Jews, but that is something very different from what the chart claims. So first proof that the chart is bogus, it contradicts Deuteronomy 28:62. There it's written to Israel in exile, you shall be left a scant few after having been as numerous as the stars in the skies because you did not heed the command of your God Yahweh. Yet according to the 12 tribes chart, there are at least 400 million Israelites today, including 47 million African Americans, 185 million Central Americans, 126 million Mexicans, 11 million Haitians, and 11 million Cubans. This is anything but few in number. Even if you say, well, the chart doesn't mean that every single person in every single group is an Israelite, you have to acknowledge that the vast majority are not Israelites, in which case you've shot yourself in the foot. Just this one fact disqualifies the chart, especially when you compare this number of more than 400 million alleged Israelites with the Jewish population today of about 15 million people. Which group is dramatically fewer in number? Also, Africans were brought to America from several different parts of the continent, which means that those various parts of Africa must have been Israelite as well, potentially adding several hundred million to the number of alleged true Israelites alive today. This is hardly few in number. Second proof, the chart relies on bogus connections. One of the proofs that Issachar is Mexico, this is from a speech, a 3-hour YouTube lecture that Al-Azhar gave in July of 2022, I believe. One of the proofs that Issachar is Mexico today is the alleged Hebrew derivation of Azteca from two Hebrew words meaning time and congregation, which would supposedly connect them to the sons of Issachar in 1 Chronicles 12:32, who understood the times and seasons. This is utter nonsense. Hebrew Oz means then. It is not a noun meaning time. And there is no Hebrew word teka. Instead, there is a verb tacha, which likely means to follow. Encyclopedia Britannica also points out that the name Aztec is derived from Aztlan, variously translated as white land, land of white herons, or place of herons, in allusion to their origins probably in northwestern Mexico. Similar errors, which are blatant falsehoods and not simply matters of interpretation, undermine the chart on every score. Plus, there is no literary or genetic or linguistic connection between Mexico and Issachar. And I don't say this to mock as much as to help those who really want truth from the Most High. In fact, there's not a stitch. Oh, hang on, looks like we skipped a slide here. So next proof, Haiti is not Levi. And in fact, there's not a stitch of concrete evidence connecting the Haitians to the Levites any more than there's a factual connection between any of the peoples of this chart and the specific tribes of Israel that are claimed. Deuteronomy 33:10 says about Haiti, not about Haiti, about Levi, they shall teach your laws to Jacob and your instructions to Israel. They shall offer you incense to savor and whole offerings on your altar. Well, Haiti is not teaching the children of Israel the laws of God. Haiti is not observing the seventh day Sabbath. They don't follow the Torah. They don't circumcise their sons on the eighth day. They don't eat only biblically kosher food, let alone teach all Israel to follow the Torah. Haiti is not Levi. In point of fact, I can add this. There's a slide of mine that got missed along the way, that according to the Bible, the Levites were scattered among all the different tribes of Israel. So there's no possible way they all end up starting in one place in a small island off the coast of America, and then from there go out, completely against history on every level. Fourth proof, Native Americans are not Reuven or Gad. DNA studies, some of them published by former Mormon leaders, make clear that these peoples have an East Asian or Siberian descent, not a Middle Eastern or even African descent. This was a revelation for these former Mormons, since the Book of Mormon, like the 12 Tribes chart, claims that Native Americans were actually Israelites. This information caused these leaders to leave Mormonism behind. So in point of fact, and there's a great study, I'll put the copy of the book up, Losing a Lost Tribe. In point of fact, the Mormons agreed with the 12 Tribes chart in terms of the Native Americans being original Israelites. It's bogus. That's why they left Mormonism. And to repeat, there's not a stitch of factual evidence, including solid linguistic evidence, to connect any Native American people with Reuven or God. This is pure fiction. And note that large-scale genetic studies indicate that these Native Americans were here on our continent even before Israel was formed as a nation. Here's one example. Science Magazine, November 2018, points to that. Fifth proof, the chart contradicts Deuteronomy 28:68. And this is just a sampling of what could be dozens and dozens of truths. Deuteronomy 28:68, you're familiar with it. Yahweh will send you back to Egypt in galleys by a route which I told you should not see again. There you shall offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but none will buy. This verse does not apply to anyone on this chart, especially not Mexicans or Seminole Indians or Central Americans, among others. Not at all. They were never slaves in Egypt, let alone sent by ship back to Egypt as slaves. As for the idea that Egypt sometimes does not refer to a physical place in the Old Testament, but rather to any place of slavery and bondage, that too is completely bogus, which I can easily demonstrate if this point is challenged. In fact, if you just read two more verses into Deuteronomy 29, verse 2, Moses tells you that this refers to literal Egypt. Now,